Can you hear the thunderstorm? There's a thunderstorm going on outside. I don't know if my $20 mic's picking it up right now, but it's perusing. You know, doing that kind of thing. Whoa! Who's this guy? That's California. You know California. You know, home of the Dodgers Stadium in Los Angeles and every influencer under the sun. They live there. You know about California. I love California. What I don't love about California, though, is the San Andreas Fault. Now, it's been very quiet for a long time, but the City of Angels is in for a rude awakening very soon. But let me explain why. Now, as we know, the Earth has many layers, much like an onion, with 4 main sections, that being the crust, the mantle, the outer core, and the inner core. The crust is the thin outer shell of these layers, mainly made up of basalt, rocks, and granite. The crust is cool, hard, and rocky, but the mantle, sitting right underneath, is hot and varies in viscosity. The mantle, while mostly solid, is more fluid around the edges of the Earth's plates. While the Earth is very old, the crust is not, as it is constantly recycled through plate tectonics. The Earth has 16 principal tectonic plates. Some plates shift more often than others, but most of these shifting sensations are felt near the plate boundaries. A bunch of these plates just so happen to meet and collide around the edges of the Pacific Ocean, appropriately named the Ring of Fire, as it is the most seismically and volcanically active zone on Earth, home to about 75% of the world's most active volcanoes and roughly 90% of all global earthquakes. The San Andreas Fault sits as part of the tectonic boundary between the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. It is a transformation boundary, meaning there where 2 plates meet. They rub against each other horizontally rather than converging or diverging. These plates have been butting heads as far back as 30 million years ago, although the main southern section of the San Andreas Fault proper has only existed for about 5 million years. The fault was first identified in Northern California by UC Berkeley geology professor Andrew Lawson in 1895. He named it after the surrounding San Andreas Valley. 11 years later, Lawson discovered that the San Andreas Fault stretched southwards into Southern California after reviewing the effects of the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. Large-scale movement along the fault was first proposed in a 1953 paper by geologists Mason Hill and Thomas Dibble. This idea, which was considered radical at the time, has since been vindicated by modern plate tectonics. Seismologists estimated that the San Andreas Fault near Parkfield in central California consistently produces a magnitude 6.0 earthquake approximately once every 22 years. In 2004, work began just north of Parkfield on the San Andreas Fault Observatory at depth. The goal of SAFOD is to drill a hole nearly 2 miles into the Earth's crust and into the San Andreas Fault, and an array of sensors would be installed to record earthquakes that happen near that area. A 2003 study found a link between the water level in Lake Cahuilla, now the Salton Sea, and seismic activity along the southern San Andreas Fault. The study suggests that major earthquakes along this section of the fault coincided with high water levels in the lake. The hydrological load caused by high water levels can more than double the stress on the southern San Andreas Fault, which is likely sufficient for triggering earthquakes. This may explain the abnormally long period of time since the last major earthquake in the region, since the lake has since mostly dried up. The San Andreas Fault has been the subject of a multitude of flood studies. In particular, scientific research performed during the last 23 years has given rise to about 3,400 different publications. A study published in 2006 in the journal Nature by Yuri Fialko found that the San Andreas Fault has reached a sufficient stress level for an earthquake of a magnitude greater than 7.0 to occur. This study also found that the risk of a large earthquake may be increasing more rapidly than scientists had previously believed. Moreover, the risk is currently concentrated on the southern section of the fault, i.e. the region around Los Angeles, because strong earthquakes have occurred relatively recently on the central and northern segments of the fault in 1857 and 1906, while the southern section has not seen any similar rupture for at least 300 years. Despite this study being released 2 decades ago, the fault has remained relatively quiet, but this silence doesn't bring peace to scientists, who say it's only gaining in pressure. Currently, the San Andreas and San Jacinto fault systems are at their highest level of tectonic stress in 1,000 years. Los Angeles' last major quake was the 1994 Northridge earthquake. The 6.7 magnitude quake killed at least 57 people and injured thousands more. Globally, as of recent, we've seen some major quakes. Last month in Venezuela, they experienced a 7.2 and 7.5 earthquake, just seconds apart, with the quakes killing more than 3,000 people. In 2023, Turkey was hit with a 7.3 and 7.8 earthquakes, killing more than 53,000 people. Although scientists have determined that a concerning amount of pressure has built up along the San Andreas and San Jacinto faults, they can't predict when the next big earthquake will strike, but they are concerned as to how soon it will happen. Scientist Lelaine Burkhard said that the fault system is at a critically loaded state. She said, "Our results show that stress levels on multiple fault segments are now at or above highest values seen in the past millennium, and that the region may be capable of a large, thorough rupture involving both fault systems." It could be days, or it could be years. It's more a matter of when rather than if. But what if it does happen tomorrow? Well, we can guesstimate destruction, but it's more worthwhile to prepare. From previous earthquakes in this area, outside of the visual apparent destruction of older buildings and property, the most disastrous impact will be damaged utility lines. Communications, electric, gas, and most importantly, water will be affected. Water is the elephant in the room, as water shortages are widespread in the state. California has 2 major issues: earthquakes and drought, with its driest 3 years on record being 2019 through 2022. Drought is intrinsic to the natural climate of California. Across the Californian region, paleoclimate records dating back more than 1,000 years show more significant dry periods compared to the latest century. Getting fresh water to people in the state has always been a more difficult task, as the landscape of the state was simply not meant to house the population that it has. If water infrastructure is damaged through a major earthquake, providing water will be the slowest resource to restore to its residents. Estimates for damages to water infrastructure could take as long as 6 months to fully repair. Outside of the billions upon billions of dollars in damages and economic setbacks that could be caused through a quake of this size in this area, the survivors are the ones who will truly suffer the most, unfortunately. It's just tragic that, realistically, I don't think Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson will be swooping in to help us. Now, there are 2 types of people that are going to take this information. People that live in California and people that don't live in California. And if you don't live in California, you're peachy keen. You know, you're totally fine. I mean, you might have to worry about like tornadoes or hurricanes or whatever natural disaster floats around your area. But if you live in California, this is definitely something you want to consider at the bare minimum. And I know that's, a lot for some, because if you can afford to leave, you're probably leaving, or you don't want to leave and you're just willing to put up with what may happen. And a lot of people can't afford to leave. They've grown up there, or they have their, family there, extended family, and just are kind of stuck dealing with it. And when it may happen, we're not sure, but it's best, bare minimum, to be prepared. And I know it sounds like doomsday Armageddon scenario, it sounds awful. But if you're prepared, it might be a little less awful. I've always been a better safe than sorry person, for the most part. I know some people will dismiss this and just, hope for the best, continue going about it. But I'm warning ya, don't fault the messenger. I'm just letting you know. I'm sorry. Sorry. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. Stay safe. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you next time.